We need to talk about hobbits. We always need to talk about hobbits, let's be real. But today, I thought I would do a particular exploration into hobbit dress because I'm currently scheming a wardrobe for the upcoming Brandywine Festival, which I will be attending here in the UK in September. The Brandywine Festival is a 3-day live-action role-play event, or LARP, which means that for 3 glorious days, I am going to be living, camping, eating, and partying in the English countryside like I'm in the Shire. While we don't have much primary source evidence, i.e. what Tolkien himself actually wrote about hobbit dress, there is still plenty that we can look at and conjectures that we can pull from the evidence that we have to make some guesses as to what sorts of garments these people would have had access to. I'm making it a rule for this event that I'm only allowed to use things that are already in my closet because I already have plenty of whimsical pieces which I've either thrifted or have been self-made or are bought from small batch businesses. Please, I am begging, do not use this video as an excuse to go buy things you will wear once or twice or not at all. If you saw my recent wardrobe catalogization video, you will know that this is a collection that I've been carefully selecting and curating over a period of years. So to some degree, being able to work with what we already have or can reasonably get access to, preferably secondhand, is going to be the most important criteria here. So these aren't one-off costumes, they are actual clothes that I wear, and I'm going to be curating and dressing up the most hobbity-based garments I own to hopefully fit the Shire aesthetic.
Chemise, trousers, yeah. Cape! This is definitely a yes.
So how first do we define the Shire aesthetic? So we have a sort of framework in which to start choosing items. First order of business, as any respectable hobbit historian must, we need to define our sources. Probably the most well-known source on our visual understanding of what hobbits look like are the Peter Jackson films of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And while I'm sure we all love these, and they're probably the reason why you clicked on this video in the first place, we do have to remember that these are one of many, 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 many interpretations of Tolkien's original source material. Right up there with the cartoon, many, many video games, and even a Magic the Gathering set. I'm going to be treating the original novels as well as the letters written by Tolkien himself as primary source evidence. Everything else is an interpretation of that and therefore is a secondary source, i.e. they have already been given a layer of interpretation on top of the primary source material. Just as I feel like we can also look at the primary source material and draw our own conclusions to inform our own hobbity wardrobes. There is a lot of conflicting information out there about what period hobbits are inspired by. So first things first, a couple of disclaimers. This is a fantasy world. There is no such thing as historical accuracy. This world is deliberately set apart from our current timeline, so we can't really use any of our own history to make assumptions about this world. I say this because I know a lot of us have this idea in our heads that is primarily based on the films of what a hobbit should look like, and I just think it's important to point out that the films are an interpretation of the primary source material. And that original source material has illustrations, the illustrators for which were inspired by completely different periods than we see depicted in the films. When we go back to the original illustrations and the letters that Tolkien wrote about those illustrations, we find that there's actually quite a surprising amount of reference to medieval dress. But the hobbits in the film can be seen wearing everything from 18th century breeches to late Victorian coats and waistcoats to full-on like Y2K corset bodices, while every other region in the film draws very heavily from early medieval and Nordic styles. The point is, there is no such thing as the 18th or the 19th century in this world, and Middle-earth does not map cleanly onto our chronology. I would argue that striving for real-world historical accuracy is just going to shoot yourself in the foot in this circumstance, because making a fantasy world into a literal existing time period defeats the illusion of an otherworldly setting to begin with. So we have a lot more freedom to work with in terms of the clothing and technology. I think if you can make an in-world, evidence-based argument for its existence, that is okay. Again, this is a LARP. This is supposed to be fun. We are not supposed to break the bank or adhere to reenactment level historical accuracy. This is a fantasy, anything goes. We can go 18th century inspired. We can go 19th century country wear inspired. We can go kind of medieval peasanty. There is evidence for all of this in various forms of Tolkien media. But again, I would cite outdoor practicality and comfort as being our primary filter here, just based on hobbit society. Hobbits are country folk. Their society centers around agriculture, handicrafts, and food, which means natural fibers, wool, linen, cotton, things that can be grown out of the ground. Again, we can't necessarily make the assumption that our IRL situation maps cleanly onto this fantasy world. So are there other fibers that grow out of the ground in Middle-earth? We don't have that kind of evidence, but based on what we have access to in our real world to represent what's going on there, we're probably going to want to look at fibers that grow out of the ground or off of the things that feed off of the ground. So wool, linen, cotton. Do silkworms exist in the Shire? Is silk an imported material? Debate. We do see Bilbo wearing a silk brocade waistcoat, so probably. Natural fibers are going to be the best option when choosing hobbit dress, not just visually, of course, aesthetically within the world, but also practically. In terms of being at an event outside for 3 days, a lot of natural fiber materials like wool and linen, they actually, by design, the fibers take away the dirt from your body. Wool is antimicrobial. Linen is going to be best for heat, as well as possibly a lightweight cotton, although cotton can be surprisingly a bit warm sometimes. Wool is going to be best for cool and wet weather. It's great at keeping moisture away from the body, so great for the rain. Silk really retains heat. So if you're wearing any sort of silk gown or silk blouse or whatever, you're probably going to be miserable in the heat. Again, we are going to work with what we have first and foremost. So if you have a synthetic blended garment that works visually or have thrifted something interesting, it is not the end of the world. Again, we are here to have fun. But if you are looking to make or buy something, definitely go with the natural fiber material.
So in terms of chemises, I need to make some decisions about what I'm bringing, because I can't bring all of this.
Practicality-wise, having a linen base layer like a shirt or a smock is going to be very useful in keeping the body clean throughout the event. So as a fiber, it absorbs the moisture, it absorbs the sweat, it absorbs dirt, it absorbs oil, and it keeps that off of your body so it doesn't have a chance to go through the bacterial process or whatever and get stinky.
We've got this awesome little pleating detail. We've got gorgeous little neck gathering. This will be excellent for hobbit purposes. I have 3 really nice shifts from Bergschneider. They also have a whole line of LARP clothing. I have not really tried anything else from their site, but their smocks can definitely vouch for. I wear these all the time, wash them, worn them. They're really fun. This one I'm definitely going to bring because it's natural cotton, so this one I'll probably bring. This is a Tudor smock, which is really great. I think this one's probably going to come with me. Actually, I just made this one recently, so there's a video about this, the making of this, on the channel. If you want to go again, check it out.
Wearing pure linen against your skin and against your hair to protect your outer garments and your outer hats is really going to be your best friend. I cannot stress that enough. And we actually do see this in the original Hobbit illustrations. Bilbo is always shown in a base plain shirt underneath his coat and waistcoat, presumably as a way to help keep clean and dry on daily activities and adventures alike. Usually these are white because they get washed frequently, so not having to worry about dyes and fading and stuff is just the practical thing to do. Color-wise, this is probably the one area where we have the most, if not only, primary source information. Tolkien specifically writes that hobbits prefer bright colors, preferring specifically greens and yellows, which probably signals an abundance of green and yellow producing dyestuffs, or perhaps yellow and blue dyestuffs with the possibility to combine into greens. This one is going to be particularly hard for me since a lot of what I own is dark, black, or at least jewel-toned, but we are going to work with it.
I don't have very many colorful things in my wardrobe, so honestly, this is probably coming with me. Maybe a green might be nice though. It is floor length, so it will probably have to be hiked up a bit, but you know what? This could be a fun idea.
Layers are going to be our best friend here. Lots of time spent outdoors, in world as well as in reality, means that we are going to be dealing with fluctuations in temperature throughout the day and evening. So having layers to shed as the day gets warmer and to add in the evening as it gets cooler is going to be realistic not only to how a hobbit would live, but also to us as humans in a field. So that leaves us open to some sort of waistcoat, tunic, jumps, or bodice layer to warm the core over the skin and or to provide bust support for the layer that goes on top of the shirt or the smock. We are definitely aiming for countryside practicality first and foremost, avoiding long skirts and trousers that brush the ground, and probably anything that's overly restrictive.
What if we do like a little Tudor cap?
Oh! You look so cute in your Tudor cap.
I love this Tudor cap. I kind of like this.
I like that. No, I figured it out. You're only about to sell me a newspaper.
The minute you put on like a flat cap and like a waistcoat.
Now it's time to save the day.
It stands to reason that hobbits would want to keep fabric from dragging on the ground that would deteriorate the hems quite quickly. So breeches or shortened trousers or mid-calf to ankle length skirts would probably be preferred in my interpretation.
This is just I think it's a wool blend, sort of tweedy kind of skirt here. This is such an easy skirt to make if you are in need of making a skirt for this event. It's literally just a rectangle for the waistband and another long rectangle of fabric as long as you want the skirt to be, and you just gather it up into the waistband. You know, super easy hobbity skirt to make. I also have this velvet skirt that I made right here on the channel once again. It is a very dark blue, so it is technically not a black, but it's got this really beautiful embroidery on it, which I think is just gorgeous, and it's also a little bit sparkly, so might be more of a potential evening wear thing. Oh look, it's also got a pocket in the front. That's definitely potential. And then I also have this folk skirt that I bought on Vinted, which I think is gonna be the most hobbity. So these are a pair of just wool pinstripe trousers. We wanna keep with trousers to make them look historical, vaguely historical, or not screaming modern. Make sure the waistline comes up at least above the natural waistline. Button-on suspenders are going to, once again, be a lot more historically reminiscent. Before they clipped on, they buttoned on, and this is just a nice little fun detail. So, yeah. I think you can kind of whimsicalize anything by adding a belt somewhere, a leather belt, and a pouch. This is before belts are being used to keep your trousers up. That's what the suspenders are doing. The belt is being used to hold things together. So it's either used to pin an apron in or to hold your belt loops. I personally will probably go for one of these just because I'm so used to wearing this at reenactment that like, it's like my second pocket already, and it holds so much. This thing is like deceptively really big. You can see there's quite a lot to go in there. Hell yeah.
Entire teapot. Nice.
So, here's some good adventuring gear. Hobbit that has to go places. And again, I could put a waistcoat on top of this. You could put a cozy little sweater vest on top of it. I'm wearing your sweater vest.
That's so cute. Wait.
Oh my god, I feel like a grandpa.
Yeah.
This is great. In terms of bodices, I have 4 potential options. This one, which is probably my favorite, that I just made, again, to match. I made it out of the scraps of the velvet skirt. I also really love this one. This is one of my old Ren Fair makes. Ah, that's adorable. Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah, I like this one. This is the first Ren Fair bodice I made. Also adorable. You know what, it's not the worst option, and it is yellow. TBD. Yeah, this one's also kind of fun. Wait, this is kind of cute. With a little basket. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's adorable! Does anyone remember this dress? I never really know where to wear this because it's so different from my usual aesthetic. But for a Hobbit LARP, perfect. Oh my god, I could do a little bonnet. Have a little bonnet moment. I kind of feel like this has to come.
I think it does. Yeah.
Headwear is going to be very practical for being outside, both for sun protection in sunny weather as well as rain and cold protection. Straw hats have been around for hundreds of years for us and are very easy materials to obtain in an agricultural society. So braided straw hats are going to be great, or wool felt hats for cold or rain, since wool is once again very effective at keeping out moisture, as well as shawls and cloaks, which can also be thrown over for warmth.
Cape, pin it shut. Hood, pin it shut. Look, the Scots knew what they were doing. Yeah. This one's purely decorative. This one has no actual function of warmth, but it's really cute.
Handcrafts are also a huge part of Hobbit society. So visible handiwork like cool weaves, embroidery, fabric manipulation like pleating or smocking, and especially hand stitching are going to hugely level up a garment. It can be really easy to do some very simple embroidery, add like a ribbon or a lace trim to a garment. And there is some question as to, how much spare time does a hobbit have when, a lot of their lives revolve around agricultural work, and to what degree are they spending significant time on their clothing. There are definitely a couple of mentions within the original stories of hobbits having trade networks with other regions, particularly the dwarves of the Misty Mountains. Bilbo buys a bunch of music boxes for little hobbits, and there is of course also the mention of hobbits having dwarven constructed boots. There does seem to be quite a fair amount of trade between the dwarves and the hobbits, and we know that the dwarves are very into their mechanization, and so the dwarves having the ability to export, and therefore the hobbits be able to purchase and import small bits of household convenience machinery, I think is a perfectly plausible thing that exists in this world. The books, I don't believe, tell us specifically what a lot of this convenience machinery is, but looking at some of the interpretive secondary sources, we do have the benefit of background shots in things like video games and in the Hobbit films as well. We can see that Bilbo has a tap in his Hobbit hole. The Hobbits have infrastructure and running water, which is super cool, but they also do have bits of manual, hand-operated machinery like laundry mangles. This means that I think it is perfectly realistic to expect a Hobbit to have some sort of manually powered stitching machine, like a hand-turned or treadle sewing machine, making machine stitching, I think, not entirely out of the question. Employing handwork and handcrafts wherever we can, I think is going to be great, but this is my argument to say that if you have machine stitching on your outfit, it's not the end of the world. And in fact, I think there is plausible in-world argument to make for the existence of machine stitching. Anyway, having machine stitches, having running water taps at their disposal, I think would argue frees up time for the hobbits to engage in more decorative crafts. And yes, indeed, to take up knitting. For some reason, there has been extremely heated discourse about whether we are allowed to wear knitted garments as hobbits. In my opinion, it is feasible within the world according to the technology that we see evidenced on page and on screen. And once again, this is a LARP in England in September. It is probably going to have cold times. Anyway.
Again, handcrafts. We love a handcraft in a hobbit situation. It's also very functional for the LARP. Great to carry things around in. Unessential for hobbiting. I also might bring my Bernadette bag from Bara Bara, who, if you are looking for a good satchel, or even like a little leather backpack, this one is the most hobbity of the three that I have. And this is the collab that we did together. Again, it's not a costume piece. These are satchels that you will have for the rest of your life because they're just so well made. Possibly for evening activities.
In regards to footwear, although hobbits are notorious for barefootedness, we do want to be safe at this event. I think it is very actively encouraged to not run around barefoot. You never know what sorts of rocks or sticks might be hiding around. And hobbits are, in fact, canonically described as wearing an occasional dwarven constructed boot or some such item for practicality or protection. And we will also definitely be wanting some sort of waterproof boot when spending 3 days in a field in northern England. I would hypothesize that boots can be more complexly constructed, being dwarven made. I would just maybe try and avoid any big, thick rubber soles as much as possible. But again, Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I've got like an ankle-length black rubber welly, which I will probably be bringing with me, because if it is pouring rain, look, your girl does not want to have wet feet for 3 days.
These are okay in the rain. These are not waterproof at all, but I feel like they're very hobbit.
I kind of like the idea that lighter everyday shoes are something more akin to a medieval turn shoe or a flat-soled, possibly wooden-soled, or maybe lace-up little thing that could very easily be made by a local shoemaker without any big industrial machinery. I'm going to avoid slim heels, primarily because heels and grass and mud do not mix, but also because, at least in our timeline, slim heels, which rise higher than about 3 inches or so, don't really come around until the invention of the steel shank in the post-industrial 20th century. So a 1 to 2 inch thick stacked leather or wooden heel is probably okay, and wooden platforms in the form of pattens I think are also fine. Now, just to take all of this information and apply this to my clothing collection to make something hobbity from it. So the story we will be living in takes place at the annual in-world Brandywine Festival, where all the hobbits come from all over the Shire to meet and just have fun and gather and dance and revel. But I think, part of a LARP is like having a character. So me and my group have decided that we are a family of brewers from South Farthing, Best Farthing, and we will be setting up a little tea tavern for a couple of hours each day to hand out some of South Farthing's finest brews. I think Jimmy, the Welsh Viking, who's also coming to the event, might try and brew some ales, so that's why we're keeping it broad and going with brews. I think some of us might bring some coffee and try and brew coffee, whatever. But I had an idea to get in touch with the good.store, to buy an absolute boatload of our favorite Keats & Co. teas, because first of all, that is basically all we drink in the studio. Genuinely, like, the best tasting teas, but also the most beautiful teas. But also because 100% of their profits are donated to charity. So I really liked the idea of providing tea for all of you guys, but also getting to support the brand and all of the really amazing good that they are doing in the world. I don't think there's gonna be any in-world currency. And of course, we're not bothering with financial exchange. It's free tea, come join us for free tea. That is all to say that the vibe we are going for with this Hobbit set of Hobbit characters, is sort of Hobbit tavern wench.
Look like you're casting a spell.
So anyway, my whole life is a mess right now, and I have a lot of clothing to put away. But I am super excited to go on a little hobbity adventure. I so look forward to seeing you there. Or if you cannot make it to the UK, there's also a US version that's happening in October. I will not be there. But if you cannot make it to either of those and you still want to come along for the fun, we will be putting out a little vlog of what goes on at the event. And if you were interested in tickets, again, down below. If you want some Keats & Co. tea, down below. But also, we are good store partners, so we have a discount link for these teas if you want to pregame and find out what your favorite of these teas are. But B, if you can't make it and you want to participate from afar, come join us. We do get a little bit of a kickback commission on that, but more funds to buy tea. This is an event that is open to the public, and there are still tickets available. There are also day tickets available now for this Saturday. So if you're not really the camping type and you just feel like coming along for a day, come visit our little tea tavern and try some delicious teas. No cost to you guys. So the link for tickets will be down in the description box below if you fancy. And I shall see you anon.
Going on an adventure!
The opening of Outlander looks different here.
Oh wait, look. If it rains. Sneaky. What if I just took a nap right here?
It's a very dirty floor.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, good night.
Good night.